Hi, I'm Adam Vascal, and we are going to talk about presentations today. But to start that off, I thought I would start with a story. At my last job, I learned a ton about presenting and had the opportunity to present quite a bit and grew and I feel very confident in that. And so we're going to do a series based on how to put together a presentation and to make it pretty easy, all things considered. But one of the first actual assignments I had at this other company was to present a pre-written, word by word, memorized presentation in front of basically the entire sales desk. And I remember being so nervous, hating it. It didn't go particularly well. I made it through it, and then one of the senior members of the company said, "Hey, that must have felt like it, was 20 minutes long, even though it was probably closer to 3." And it turns out that that's not really the point of that presentation. Is not only to to work on your craft, but it's really more of a rite of passage. It's like, can you memorize something? Can you stand in front of a group and deliver? So a lot of presentations are like that, where they are miserable and they're just a survival situation where you're in front of a crowd and you're just hoping to not pass out. So what we're going to talk about today is how to make that a little less depressing and maybe even have a little bit of fun up there. Because if you're having fun, your audience will enjoy your presentation that much more. So I haven't asked for today's video. If this is something that resonates with you, if you had to give a presentation, it didn't go particularly well, or you had anxiety over giving it and even preparing it, let me know in the comments how that went. And I'd love to hear the story and then ultimately what you learned from that. But today's presentation, we're going to focus on really three things. We're going to talk about the structure. We are going to craft a presentation using that structure, and then I'll deliver it. So this is not something that I've prepared. But I want to show you that it's really easy if you follow a structure to put something together that you can memorize and remember even in the heat of the moment. So today what we're going to talk about is, again, structure. We're going to craft a presentation and then we're going to deliver it. So we'll start with structure. The first thing we're going to talk about with structure is what the format should look like. You can see this presentation is going to allow you to fill in boxes as you build your presentation. And it's really helpful because in the heat of the moment, it's nice to know that you have an outline. If you have a whiteboard that you can use during your presentation, you can write your 3 points up there and lean into them, looking at them occasionally in case you forget. But it's a great way to keep you on task. Over time, my version of this has evolved into simply writing it. I mean, I could write this on a cocktail napkin as to what I want to present on. And that's all the support that I really need to get through it. But I think in the beginning, this is extremely helpful to go through this outline. So when we start with this, we're going to start with the close in mind at the bottom rather than the top. And this is simply thinking about what you want to get out of your audience. Did you write a book and you're hoping to have people buy your book? Are you meeting with people or talking to people and trying to get a meeting set up? Do you want to get them to do some other action or something that you're selling? You need to know that and put that in your close. The step above that is the call to action. So think about why they want to do this thing that you're going to list in your close, but why do they want to do it right now? Like, what is the urgency? What's the hurry? Where's the fire? Why do I need to do this right now? So think about those two items first. Now we're going to skip up to the topic. What is it that I'm going to talk about today? And then I want to list 3 points that I'm going to use to cover that topic. And this is the body of your presentation, and it also determines the length. So I've given presentations that were 30 seconds and presentations that were 8 hours and used the same format. But essentially the depth and the time that I had allocated would come from the 3 points and the supporting details. So we'll go through that. And then the introduction, I would say, is the most important part. The introduction determines whether or not your audience enjoys hearing you as a speaker. And if they do enjoy hearing you as a speaker, there's a good chance that they'll want to see you again, and they might let you try to sell them again, or might let you go to dinner with them or something like that. If they think that you are not interesting, then they may not listen to your presentation at all. And that's the harsh reality that I think we all have to realize. And the good news is that it doesn't really matter if you're an extrovert or introvert. I would say that I'm definitely more introverted by nature, but still have been able to craft successful introductions that have made really good presentations. All right, so this presentation I'm going to do about one of my hobbies, jiu-jitsu, and I figured it was just something off the wall that you can really do this with anything though, so I'm sure you'll have something that's more serious for work or so forth. But remember how we're going to navigate through this, basically looking at this from bottom to top. So my close is that I ultimately want someone to take a jiu-jitsu class and comment in the comments section that they took the class. So I'm just going to put comments. Yeah, excuse my handwriting. I'm writing on an iPad that's vertical. This is not going to be pretty. But comments is going to be my close. That's what I want. So the call to action, why should you do this right away? So let's say what I'm going to say is health benefits so that you can hit the New Year's running, right? It's now almost fall, getting toward the end of the year. It's a great way to springboard into the new year. So we're going to say this is a great time to start, right? So when you're thinking about that, a lot of times the call to action, seasonal things are really smart to think about, whether it's summer vacation or tax season, things that it's getting colder, it's getting hotter, whatever it is that's happening seasonally that could motivate them to do something that you're trying to get them to do sooner rather than later is super important. So my introduction, actually I've got my topic, so it's going to be jiu-jitsu. And my 3 points I think are going to be position, submission, and breathing. From a position standpoint, there's kind of two that we'll talk about. Let's talk about the mount, and we'll talk about taking the back. Submissions, let's talk about some things maybe we see on TV, like an arm bar and a rear naked choke. And then breathing, let's talk about breathing through the nose and breathing in bad situations. Just kind of making this up, right? My introduction, it's going to be a story that I had about a wreck. So that's it. We have filled this outline out. It took us a minute. As you're thinking through this, it's probably going to take you longer than that. I totally understand. This is just as an example. But what's really funny is that once I started to get used to this format, I might look at like a napkin, and my napkin would say something like wreck story, and we're going to talk about position, submission, and breathing, right? And that would be it. I knew I wanted to start out with a story about a wreck. I wanted to go position, submission, and breathing, and then I had an idea in my head. I already knew what I wanted to close for, right? So that's it. So we're gonna start out. I'm gonna tell you a story about a wreck that happened and how that related to jiu-jitsu. I'm gonna tell you about the topic. One thing that's really important here too is to pre-close. So I'll kind of draw a little arrow here, pre-close. Not necessary, but if you prefer not to be a hard closer, the pre-close makes a ton of sense. So you can tell me what you think about that. Have 3 points. We're going to stay concise. I'll do another video probably later on the power of 3. Your supporting details, that's going to be used to build out the length of my presentation. And then I'm going to have a call to action. Why do we need to take a class right now? And then what I ultimately want is for people to start to take a class, see how it goes, and leave me some comments on how they do. Hi, this is Adam Vascal. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I want to talk about a passion of mine, which is jiu-jitsu. I've been doing it for a couple of years now, and it really helped me recently. I was in a wreck. My wife and my son were in Charlotte on vacation, and we were driving on the interstate, and somebody came from behind. I was changing lanes, and somebody came flying from behind, hit me in the side, and just kept on going. And I thought it was going to be a hit and run, honestly, but he eventually hit the next exit and kind of pulled over, and I pulled in behind him.
Before I could get my belt off or even really turn off the car, he was out of the car, storming toward us. And just the way that things looked, I just thought to myself, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be bad. I'm about to get into a fight in front of my son and my wife. I'm well over 40 years old. This is not going to be good." But thankfully, because of jujitsu, I felt really calm, just knowing that how the human body behaves in a stressful situation, especially something like a fight. I felt like I had some advantages there, simply just being able to stay relaxed, right? So I got out, went up, stayed calm, just asked him, how he was doing, if everybody was okay after the side swipe. And he said, yeah, we're fine. It seemed to diffuse things right away. And he even returned the question, are you guys okay as well? So exchange information, everything went amicably from there. So, kind of anticlimactic, but really, when you think there's an odds of getting in a fight with someone, that's the result that you're looking for. So as a result, I'm a big fan of jujitsu, and we'll talk about why. So before we get started, though, I want you to do something for me. Look in your phone, and just Google jujitsu and see what gyms are in your area, and write down 2 names of local gyms that you have. And I'll give you a second to do that. And while we're doing that, I'll go over the structure of today's presentation, which is going to be threefold regarding jujitsu. So we're going to talk about positions, submissions, and breathing. So positions, submissions, and breathing. So let's start with positions. There's 2 basic ones that are important to know, being on the good side and the bad side. First one is the mount, and the second one is the back. So if you're in the mount, this is thinking about to when you're a kid and maybe you've got an older brother, older sister, and that person is sitting on your chest and it feels horrible, right? You are on your back, you're looking toward the sky, and you've got this person's weight just bearing down on your chest, and it's a horrible situation. Well, you can imagine as you get bigger and older and the stakes are higher, that is a very threatening and panic type of situation. So knowing how to be comfortable in that situation, knowing how to react, and what you can do from an attack and an escape standpoint are incredibly beneficial, especially when it comes to self-defense. The other thing that's kind of neat about jiu-jitsu is you've got the back, being on someone's back where basically you're both facing the same way, but you're behind them. Oddly enough, it's an even more advantageous position as compared to the mount. So there's things like that you'll learn in jiu-jitsu where it's interesting, where you have a position that you think is completely dominant, but there's actually a position even more dominant than that, because now you can do all the attacking and the person that you're going against has no real options to attack you. So that is the mount and the back. So the next thing we're going to talk about are submissions. So we see all these things on the UFC, if you watch that, or learning about jiu-jitsu, like the arm bar or the rear naked choke. You may be familiar with those. But it's amazing how hard it is to hit those submissions just because you've seen them on TV. So that's something with jiu-jitsu where you talk about the nuances of how to do these things. And what's really neat about a rear naked choke or an arm bar is that you don't have to hurt somebody for them to get the point and stop fighting, right? So if you threaten an arm bar and you get to the point you're about to break their arm, they're probably going to calm down a little bit. Even choking someone, even if they were to pass out completely, it's not that dangerous. So if you have somebody and you have them in a choke, it's going to help them to calm down. So it's a really great option as compared to kicking and punching, where you're actually doing damage, perhaps permanent damage to someone. I like the option of jiu-jitsu where you can threaten something and you can let them know that this needs to calm down without it becoming a big event. So it's really a great discipline from that standpoint. And then finally, this is really the idea that helped me so much, and that situation got a little tense after my wreck, was breathing. Breathing is so difficult in a stressful situation. It's really hard to think about that. The first thing is that nobody breathes through their nose. When you're in a stressful situation and you're starting to get tired, you're breathing in through your mouth, and it's really hard to remember to take deep breaths through your nose and out through the mouth, and that's going to help to keep your heart rate down and to keep oxygen circulating through your body and making sure your body works correctly. And then breathing in bad situations is even more important, because if somebody were to tackle you from behind or attack you and you didn't see it coming, and now they're on top of you, that panic breathing is the worst possible reaction, because you're going to gas out and you're going to get super tired as a result of simply being in a bad situation. So jiu-jitsu helps with that, where you remain calm, you know how to escape, you're going to continue to breathe, and then ultimately your attacker is the one that's going to get tired first. So here's what I'm thinking. We are nearing the end of the year. A lot of people make New Year's resolutions where they want to get into shape. I would encourage you to give yourself a longer runway and start now. That way, by the time you hit New Year's, you've already lost some weight and you're starting to get in much better shape, because jiu-jitsu will definitely do that for you. So those names that you wrote down from the beginning of our presentation, I assure you, they will give you a trial class for free. Go in, give it a try, start getting into shape, take a few classes. But what I would ask is go give it a shot. It's free. It's only gonna help you to burn some calories and get a good workout and maybe learn a couple of things that are pretty neat. And then I want you to come back and report on how it went. So I appreciate your time. Again, my name is Adam Vascal. Let me know if you have any questions. I look forward to hearing from you. Okay, that's it. That was my presentation, just thrown together. Lots of ums and all that kind of stuff that you would want to clean up before giving an actual presentation. But of course, I didn't have it ingrained and to the point where it was second nature. But what I really like about this format is that you can spend maybe 10, 15 minutes putting together what you want your presentation to look like, and then the rest of it is practice time. That's so important. When I was traveling on the road and giving presentations, I could arrive at the hotel, run through the presentation real quick in front of the mirror, go to dinner, do it again before I went to bed, wake up in the morning, do it again in the mirror, get ready, maybe do it one last time, and then was ready to get on stage and deliver. And by that point, I had it all second nature. I knew exactly where I was going to run from point to point to point. And having that foundation really helped me with my nerves. I mean, I think that's the biggest obstacle, is that it's really difficult to be ourselves on stage because we're so nervous about looking like a fool or forgetting something or whatever comes into our head as a roadblock to giving a great presentation. But I promise you, with this format, if you can come up with a really good story to start out with, pre-close, 3 points, and then really wrap it up with something specific that you want your audience to do, I would say that's a win. That's a really great presentation. But please take a look at this format, give it a shot. If you go out and do jiu-jitsu, I'd love to hear that too. But let me know what you think. If you've ever used this format before, I would love to hear that as well. And then any horror stories, I've got a few as well. So I would be really interested to hear how that went, and then the learning experience that you had from those presentations. But thank you for your time. I look forward to hearing from you.